All right, are we ready? Everybody's here. Okay, so the hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, February 22nd, 2021. I'd like to call the City of Laconia City Council meeting to order. Prior to beginning the meeting, though, I'd like to take care of the introduction for electronic meetings. As mayor of the Laconia City Council, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members have the ability to communicate during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to watch the live YouTube video at www.youtube.com/LaconiaNH. Listen to this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 1-301-715-8592, or participate by the Zoom app, webinar ID 875-6372-8365, password 279717. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the City of Laconia's website at www.laconianh.gov. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 527-1265, extension 243, or email at cityclerk@laconianh.gov. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states his presence, also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I'd ask the city clerk, Cheryl Hebert, to call the roll, please.
Councillor Cheney.
Home and alone.
Councillor Susie.
Home and alone.
Councillor Littman.
Present, home and alone.
Councillor Haynes. You're on mute.
Here at City Hall and alone.
Councillor Hamel.
Home and alone.
Councillor Felch.
Home and alone.
Mayor Hosmer.
I'm standing out front of the Belknap Mill this evening, and no, I am home and alone.
Thank you.
Before we go any farther, I'd also like to start this meeting like we do every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd call upon Councillor Haynes if he would be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Also joining us this evening is our recording secretary, City Clerk Cheryl Hebert. We're also joined at the meeting this evening, City Manager by City Manager Scott Myers and City Finance Director Glenn Smith. Moving along to our agenda item number 7, which are the regular meeting minutes of our meeting, our City Council meeting of February 8th, 2021. Minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. With no changes or corrections submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. Moving along to item number 9 on our agenda. This is the time in the council meeting when citizens who have comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda, now is the appropriate time for them to raise their hand, and it's their opportunity to speak. So citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. And I'll wait for your cue, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, nobody has raised their hand.
Thank you. So moving along to nominations and appointments, we had fairly extensive interviews last week with a number of people who expressed an interest in joining a board or a reappointment to a board. I think we have a great selection of candidates here. So there are the first name, 11A on the agenda, is Harrison Haas. I see Harrison has indicated he's seeking an appointment as a regular or alternate member. And then if we look at 11B, we see that Marnie Blaisdell Schultz is looking for reappointment as a regular member. So that would lead me to believe we could accommodate each of them if there was a motion for Mr. Haas as an alternate member and perhaps a motion for Ms. Schultz as a regular member. So I'll be looking to the council for a motion, a second, discussion and vote. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, I will make that motion that Mr. Haas be voted on as a alternate member and that Mr. Schultz as a permanent, as a regular member.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I probably would ask you to separate those
Separate
two
them.
names. And that way you can, people aren't bound by a block vote, if you will. They can vote on the individuals up and down.
Okay, no problem. So is there a second to Councilor Hamel's motion to appoint Harrison Haas as an alternate member of the Conservation Committee? Seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there further discussion? Councilor Cheney.
Nope, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So seeing no request for further discussion, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Harrison Haas is appointed as an alternate member of the Conservation Commission. Excuse me. Thank you for your willingness to serve and congratulations, Mr. Haas. So moving along to 11B, Councilor Hamel, would it still be your intention to move Marnie Blaisdell Schultz for reappointment as a regular member?
yes, I would, Mayor.
Terrific. And is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Ms. Schultz, and thank you for your willingness to serve. You've been reappointed as a regular member of the Conservation Commission. Moving on to item 11C. Any motions for Mr. Anderson? So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Felch. And this is a motion for Mr. Anderson to be reappointed as a regular member of the Library Board of Trustees to a term expiring at the end of March 2024. We have first a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
yes,
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, James Ole Anderson, as being reappointed to the Library Board of Trustees for a term expiring. Thank you for your willingness to serve as well. There is one alternate member of the Library Board of Trustees who has indicated an interest and interviewed at our last meeting. There'd be a motion for Mr. Knurr at this time. So made by Councillor Felch, seconded by Councillor Hamel. Is there any further discussion in regards to Bruce Knurr being reappointed as an alternate member of the Library Board of Trustees to a term expiring at the end of March 2022? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Bruce Knurr. You've been reappointed as an alternate member of the Board of Trustees, and thank you for your willingness to serve. Moving along to item number 11E. We had Catherine Tokars seeking reappointment as an alternate member of the Heritage Commission to a term expiring at the end of March 2024. That so made by Councillor Felch, seconded by Councillor Felch, seconded by Councillor Haynes, excuse me. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Catherine Tokars, and you've been reappointed as an alternate member of the Heritage Commission. Moving on to 11F. Elizabeth Ballantyne is seeking reappointment as a regular member of the Putnam Fund to a term expiring at the end of March 2026. Is there a motion? It's Councillor Felch, seconded by Councillor Hamel. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
There's 6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Betty Ballantyne, as you've been reappointed as a regular member of the Putnam Fund. And thank you for your willingness to continue to serve. Moving along to 11G. B. Randy Haas is seeking appointment as a regular member of the trustees of the trust funds for a term expiring at the end of March 2024. Motion made by Councillor Felch, seconded by Councillor Susie. Is there any further discussion on B. Randy Haas in this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Mr. Haas, to your appointment as a regular member of the trustees of the trust funds, and thank you. Moving on to 11H, we have Jane LaRoche seeking appointment as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to a term expiring at the end of August 2024. A motion made by Councillor Felch. Is there a second? So made by Councillor Haynes. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Jane LaRoche and this motion for appointment to the ZBA? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations and thank you, Ms. LaRoche, as you've been appointed as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Moving on to 11I, Susan Hodgkins, seeking appointment as a regular member or alternate member of the Planning Board to a term expiring at the end of June 2024. So this is a Planning Board, and it's a request for either a member or an alternate member, so I'll rely on the council to make the appropriate motion. Councilor Felch,
Make a motion for regular member.
is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Susi. Thank you. Councilor Cheney, pardon me.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, in the background,
Yes.
I believe it says there are no regular members. Even though she applied for a regular member, there are none available. So the appointment would need to be for the alternate member of the planning board.
I'll
Okay.
change that motion.
So Councilor Felch has amended his original motion, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susi,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. Congratulations, Susan Hodgkins, as you have been appointed an alternate member of the Planning Board. And moving on to 11J. I have Deanna Geyer, who is seeking reappointment as a regular member of the Parks and Recreation Commission to a term expiring at the end of March 2024. Motion made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Any further discussion on Ms. Geyer's reappointment to the Parks and Recreation Commission? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susi,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, and congratulations to Deanna Geyer on her reappointment as a regular member of the Park and Recreation Commission. Thank you, councilors. Moving on to number 13 on our agenda under public hearings. Tonight, we're going to have a public hearing for resolution RES 2021-03 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $23,059 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. That's a mouthful. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the February 10th, 2021 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Public Library, Laconia Community Center, and the SAU. Action on this item will be taken up under unfinished business this evening. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:20 p.m. in regards to resolution RES 2021-03. If there's someone in the public who'd like to speak about this matter, now would be the appropriate time.
Mr. Mayor, nobody has raised their hand.
We're a relatively quiet bunch out there tonight, don't we?
It appears so.
I'll close the public hearing at 7:21 p.m. On the resolution 2021-03. I don't believe we have any presentations tonight. We do have the mayor's report under number 15, Just a couple of brief items, if I may. Really one that's just sort of a kind of a public service announcement. As we all know, the Lakes Region Community Hospital, Concord Hospital has agreed to purchase Lakes Region General Hospital. They're going through some of their public outreach, they being the Attorney General's Office and Charitable Trust Division. I just wanted to make sure that the community knew and are reminded that they're invited to participate in a public forum on February 23rd. That's tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. regarding Concord Hospital's proposed acquisition of LRG Healthcare's assets. This is a Zoom meeting. The details for the Zoom meeting can be found on the city's website. This is topics of discussion will include community health profile by Catherine London, who's the principal for health law and policy at UMass Medical School, a presentation on the proposed transaction by LRGH Healthcare and Concord Hospital. And there's also a presentation. There'll also be an opportunity for the audience, the public, to ask questions and have them answered. So certainly those that have some concerns about this acquisition, or perhaps have some ideas of what healthcare should look like in our community, certainly that would be an appropriate time to speak up, and I encourage you to do so. Finally, I just wanted to mention the passing of Russell Hobby. Russell, as many of you know, was an on-call firefighter with the Laconia Fire Department for 39 years. He also had an extensive history with a number of charitable and nonprofit organizations. He's also the father of Lieutenant J.P. Hobby from the Laconia Fire Department. Certainly wanted to send along an appreciation for his career as the on-call firefighter, but also send condolences along to his family as well as his wife of 50 years, Anne-Marie. So with that, I will conclude my remarks this evening and move right along to council comments under number 16 on our agenda. And I'll wait to see somebody's hand go up. Not seeing any requests for council comments. Let's move right along into number 17, which is committee reports. I'll be looking again for hands from council members if anyone wants to present a committee report. Seeing none, I'll move right along to liaison reports under number 18. Anyone have any liaison? Yes, Councilor Felch.
Yes, I met with the Motorcycle Week Association, attended their meeting last Wednesday. Motorcycle Week is moving forward fast and furious for June 12th through the 20th. The rally news should be out within a few weeks. They're planning a light parade from City Hall to Lakeside Avenue on Friday night. It appears most of the sponsors are still on board. And as far as the fire in their office, they've cleaned out almost everything out of there and have temporary office space at the Belknap Mill.
Thank you, Councilor Felch. Any other liaison reports? Seeing none, let's move on to number 19, which is citizens' requests to comment on current agenda items. If there are agenda items this evening and the public is tuned in and would like to speak, now would be the appropriate time. And I'll wait for your cue, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, nobody has raised their hand.
Thank you very much. Moving along to number 20, This is the city manager's report, and I'll be turning it over to City Manager Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So included in your agenda packet this week are two reports, the Laconia projects update. As I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we're working through some logistics on the timing of the Court Street Bridge replacement project tied into some of the utility work that needs to occur in a very high water table and some challenges with that water table. So we're still in communication with New Hampshire DES and our contractor and our engineers to work that out. The remainder of the road improvement list, if you will, for this year is being worked upon, and we'll be looking to finalize that in another month or so as we get ready for the season. On the big project that we know that is occurring over in the Lakeport area with some updates to the water, sewer, and then paving, all on the Mechanic Street and then over into Elm Street area as well later in the season. The cross-country work, if you will, on the water main was completed this winter. We'll be in that area in the springtime to start working on some of the sewer. In conjunction with that project, I shared with the council last week, but wanted to say at the meeting tonight that the city request for a loan from the State Water Pollution Control Revolving Loan Fund Program. That's almost as much of an acronym as the New Hampshire DES aquatic species there. But we were successful with a little over $1.7 million loan, of which will be eligible for a 15% forgiveness. So a little over $250,000 of that can be forgiven and financed for 20 years at a fixed rate of 2%. So very favorable terms over the 20 years, in addition to up to 15% of the loan forgiveness on that project. So big work happening in the Lakeport area coming up as weather conditions allow this spring. Additionally, on the economic development report, the unemployment numbers through the month of December, again, we saw an uptick everywhere, locally, regionally, statewide, as the pandemic had started to rebound a bit through the holidays and had curtailed some activities and some business operations. And we have the first inflation number in for the new calendar year. January inflation came in at 1.4%. So we know we're working with 1.2% for the budget that will be presented to you in April. So this kicks off the new season, and 1.4 is the January number. And I can take any questions on that or anything else anybody may have tonight.
Any questions for the city manager at this time? Councilor Hamel.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Scott, I was wondering, is the Court Street Bridge still planned to be shut down this fall instead of the spring?
That's how it's looking right now. Yes, we still need to do some other work. We plan for a shutdown, not to exceed 30 days. Evrox is the company that was awarded the bid. This is a state bridge aid program. But yes, we are targeting a post-Labor Day, pre-Columbus Day slot, because then we wouldn't be impacting Pumpkin Fest should that be occurring in the peak of the fall foliage season. And then also we will have some additional road work to be completed on the approaches. So if we tried to go post-Columbus Day into mid-November, let's say, that would be impacting the paving that would have to occur on either side of the approach to the bridge. We hate to get into the road and start doing something, as you well know, Councilor Hamel, in the middle of November.
Right. Is there any planned work during the summer?
There'll be some work this spring. I think for the summer we will be, for the most part, shut down. And even the work this spring, we are planning on shifting over one lane and using the turning lane and the other travel lane, so that we hope to at almost all times have two lanes of traffic going, a little bit tighter of a pinch there, but to keep the traffic flowing in two lanes as often as possible. Okay.
A couple things with that. Can you, if that's going to be shut down for most of the summer, then reopened in the fall, where they've been working, the pavement is terrible, especially on the side of Laconia. I guess I could relate it as that way. I hope that can get addressed for the summer then.
Absolutely. We'll be, like I say, we'll be in there doing some utility work this spring as soon as conditions allow. So I do know the one spot you're speaking about that has not handled the winter as well as one would have hoped.
Yeah. Also, could we come up with some kind of a procedure that we can see how the emergency services are going to be handled on the other side of that bridge when it's going to be shut down?
Yeah, I'm doing some speaking with Councillor Haynes a while back. This is his ward, and we did some review of how many calls were going in particular, say, to St. Francis Home at that point, and the response. So our response would be a touch longer going down South Wayne and then up the bypass. Obviously, we can have conversations with Belmont as well on those types of responses to see if there's an opportunity for them to assist us during that time. But it's definitely on our radar, and we will provide the approach that we'll take to the council well in advance of that, so the public is aware.
Okay, great. And something will be put out in writing so everybody will know.
Yes, we'll make it very public. Yep.
Okay. The other thing is Motorcycle Week. It's great that they're moving forward with everything, but we haven't heard nothing as of yet. And I think the council should have this on their agenda for either probably the next meeting, because that's coming pretty quick on what we think Motorcycle Week will look like. If it's going to be a full-blown thing with vendors and the whole schmear, or, are we looking to do something in case the coronavirus is still around and shots aren't that well available, or, I think that needs to be discussed again this year.
No, I think that's a great idea. And actually, staff and I are working toward that. And I think to put something on the council agenda for the next meeting is perfect timing. We're not only looking at, some projections of how many people will have the opportunity to be vaccinated with both the first and second shot, kind of based on the doses that are currently coming into the state, how quickly they're being administered, what the projections are for when we start opening up Group 2A, which is teachers and daycare, childcare workers, and some other potentially medically impacted people. And then phase 2B goes, I believe, back to the people who are 55 and older. So we're doing some tracking with some regional and state partners on that, because we're not only looking at Motorcycle Week, which obviously is a very important component. We're looking at some of the guidance that's coming out right now for things like summer camps, and how we would have the ability to run the day camp over at Peachy. Also some preliminary discussions with leadership at Parks and Recreation, and also the Parks Commission about beach capacity again at Weirs Beach, this year, and those types of things. So all of that is kind of internally in the works, so that we're looking at the most recent data, and that this is data and science driven to help us make those ideas. But yes, absolutely, we can put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, and it would be nice also to find out if there's been any in the vendors themselves coming here, because obviously that's how we pay for all this. And if you don't have vendors, it's going to make it a tough Motorcycle Week for us.
Sure, and I can't speak necessarily to the private parties. I know we've had some calls about our boardwalk spaces to see if we have openings. We have held back on mailing out any of our renewals yet. We would typically do that this time of year, but it doesn't put us too far behind the curve to be doing that in the March timeframe. I don't necessarily have a great handle on all of the other vendors that are on private property, but we can certainly maybe do some outreach to through our planning staff and some of the folks who have site approvals, and maybe just test the waters to see what those folks are hearing on the ground at that point.
Yeah, that would be great to do that. Okay, thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Councillor Haynes? You're on mute. Councillor Haynes, you're on mute.
Scott, I know we had a conversation, but I wonder if it's gone any further about the left-hand turn off the bypass where you're facing 2 lanes of traffic that's headed towards Belmont.
Yeah. Let me double check on that. I know you and I discussed that and discussed with Wes, and the state would absolutely have to be involved in that. So let me make a note and get you a recent update on where we stand on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or comments for the city manager? Seeing none. Like to move along to number 21, which is new business. This is a request. This is a request submitted by Chief Kirk Beatty from Laconia Fire Department. It's a request for approval from the City of Laconia and Laconia Fire Department to enter into a COVID-19 vaccination aid agreement with New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services. By entering into an agreement with New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, Laconia Fire Department advanced EMTs and paramedics would be able to work as COVID-19 vaccinators at state-approved vaccination sites, and the state of New Hampshire shall reimburse for actual personnel costs incurred. The start date for this agreement would be retroactively effective from January 15th, 2021, and run through September 30th, 2021. The state-run sites are dependent on personnel from local communities to vaccinate the general population, and many of these vaccinators are coming from local fire departments. As indicated, this will not have a fiscal impact, as the state of New Hampshire will reimburse actual personnel expenses incurred, including but not limited to salary, wages, administrative expenses, stipends, and fringe benefits. Pay will come from the operating budget and then be reimbursed fully, resulting in no fiscal impact. Chief Beatty indicates that he recommends approving the ability for the City of Laconia Fire Department to enter into an emergency management directive agreement with DHHS for COVID-19 vaccination aid. Scott, is there anything that you or the chief would like to add to this?
Nothing I have. This is a pretty standard form. They're standing up a lot of these centers around the state, and certainly need to find some folks who have the qualifications and the willingness to assist at these facilities. Our staff has been great and assisting up at the college. We also, in conjunction with the Partnership for Public Health, when back in January, the vaccine became available for first responders, we hosted at Laconia Fire a closed pod site for the towns of Belmont and Guilford and Laconia. And there were a couple of those small pods set up in and around the Lakes region through the Partnership for Public Health to do those vaccinations in a timely and orderly fashion. So this is really just a kind of a continuation of work that's being done and just more formalizing it for a long-term arrangement with DHHS at this point. And Chief Beatty is there, and if he has more to add, he can raise his hand and we can free him up if I butchered something here tonight. Well, he's raising his hand. Glenn, can you unmute him?
Councilor Littman, would you like to speak before the chief speaks?
Yeah, I'm recusing myself because DHHS is my employer.
Thank you, Councilor Littman. Please let the record reflect that Councilor Littman has recused himself from this discussion and vote. Hi, Chief.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Quite well. Welcome.
All right.
And anything that Scott just so happened to butcher? That you
No,
want to clean
no,
up?
he didn't butcher anything. I was just gonna make a note that we probably have, I think we're 7 or 8 of our personnel that have been going up to the site quite regularly to do this. They're trying to vaccinate hundreds and hundreds a day at each of these sites, and they're continuously trying to find more people to do it. So really glad we're able to do this, and so hopefully this goes through tonight, and appreciate you taking the time on this tonight.
Thanks for you and your department's willingness to participate in this this endeavor, Chief.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilor Cheney, do you have a comment?
No, I was going to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Terrific. Okay, so I take it that Councilor Cheney motions that we approve that the City of Laconia and Laconia Fire Department enter into a COVID-19 vaccination aid agreement with New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, seconded by Councilor Felch. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Councilor Hammond.
Yes, I just have one question. I noticed that the limitation on the funds is $10 million. I mean, that sounds like an awful lot, but what happens when those funds run out?
I can't speak 100%, but there have been funds that have been made available later in funding packages if needed. So I can't imagine if there are successful vaccination sites being stood up and there is still demand for them to be there, that the state or the federal government's all of a sudden going to say, well, we ran out of money. I guess we stop right here. So I think that's what the state maybe received in an allocation in one silo of money. I can't speak to that exactly, but the priority from the administration at the federal level and the state level is to get as many people vaccinated as efficiently and as quickly as possible. So if dollars run short, I'm sure they will address that.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to also say that the dark pod they had at the fire station went very well. They did a great job there.
Absolutely.
Seeing no further requests for discussion, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 5 votes in the affirmative with Counselor Lippman abstaining, and that motion passes. Thanks, Chief, and thank you, counselors. Moving on to number 22, which is our unfinished business. This will be the second reading of Resolution RES 2021-03 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $23,059 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. We're looking for 3 motions here. The first of which would be a move to waive the reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. Counselor Cheney makes the motion, seconded by Counselor Haynes. You're like my two go-to guys. You have been for almost a year now. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes, sorry, I'm muted.
that's all right, thank you. Counselor Haynes, you're muted.
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
With 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second motion we'll be looking for is a move a second reading of Resolution RES 2021-03 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $23,059 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes,
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And third and finally, I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2021-03 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend a grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $23,059 for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program Project. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
yes,
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And thank you, counselors. Moving along, that just about concludes what's on the agenda this evening. The council I will be looking for a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A3 Roman 2 parentheses D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property, which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community. After that motion, after I assume that motion passes, we go into non-public session. When we come back to public session, the only reason for that is to make sure we have a quorum and to adjourn this meeting. There'll be no other matters taken up once we come back into public session. So a motion to go into non-public, so made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Felch. And I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. Motion passes. We'd now be going into a non-public session and we'll move to the other Zoom
Mr. Mayor?
room. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, would you also make the announcement that within the non-public, you're going to be seeking a motion to recess so that we can have a non-meeting for collective bargaining conversations?
I couldn't set it any better, so that's what I'll be doing. Yes,
Okay,
let the
perfect.
record reflect that.
Thank you. with a roll call vote?
Yeah, what you want to do it, Scott?
Yeah, I can call the roll when we're ready for it.
Go ready.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, you're looking for a motion to seal the minutes for 6 months?
6 months is appropriate time.
So moved.
Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Further discussion?
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
Sealed for 6 months, 6 votes in the affirmative. Now I think my job is just to adjourn the meeting, right, Scott? That's it.
Yes, yep,
Correct.
absolutely.
Adjourn the meeting of February 22nd, 2021 at 9:04 p.m.
Have a
Thank
good
you, everybody.
evening.